Most Navy SEALs don't die in combat. They die at home, alone, quietly, by their own hand, and nobody talks about it. This is the dark side of every Navy SEAL rank, the part they never show you in the recruitment video. Rank 1, the applicant. Dark side, the lie you tell yourself. You're 19. You walk into that recruiter's office in San Diego and you feel something you've never felt before. Purpose. And that feeling, that clean, sharp, intoxicating feeling, is the first thing that will eventually be used against you. Because nobody tells you this. The military doesn't just train your body, it rewires your identity. You stop being a person with a name and a history and a mother who doesn't know which part of the Navy you're joining. You become a function, a rank, a role, a set of skills. And for years, that will feel like the greatest thing that ever happened to you. Until the day it doesn't. You sign the contract before reading the last page. That is not a small detail. That is the first lesson the military teaches you, and you haven't even started yet. You will be asked to commit fully to things you don't yet understand, and you will say yes every time. Rank 2, the Bud student. Dark side, they broke you on purpose. You're 20. The Pacific is 65 degrees. That sounds manageable until you've been lying in the surf zone for 4 hours and your body has stopped shaking, not because you're warm, but because it has given up trying. Hell Week is 132 hours of continuous training, fewer than 4 hours of total sleep. Your boat crew loses 3 men in 48 hours, not to injury, to a bell. Torres, the strongest swimmer in your class, walks to that bell at 2:17 in the morning and rings it. And here is the dark truth they will never put in a brochure. You judged him. Not out loud, not consciously, but somewhere deep and honest, you felt something close to contempt. That contempt is what they were building, because a SEAL who feels contempt for weakness will push through his own weakness indefinitely. He will ignore his own pain, his own warning signs, his own mind screaming at him to stop. The bell wasn't just for Torres. The bell was teaching you what you would eventually do to yourself. Rank 3, the new guy. Dark side, the silence becomes normal. You're 22. Kunar Province, Afghanistan, 2009. The valleys are deep. The ridge lines are watched. The outpost has no official name. Your senior chief, Decca, doesn't speak to you for 11 hours. Afterward, he hands you a protein bar. You held your spacing. 2 words, 11 hours of work, and you genuinely feel that this is enough. That is the most dangerous thing that has happened to you so far, because you have just learned that emotional acknowledgement is a luxury, that asking for recognition is weakness, that speaking about what you're carrying is a burden you place on others. 3 months in, your patrol makes contact, 6 minutes of controlled chaos, debrief for 2 hours, every decision examined. You fall asleep in your kit because you don't have the energy to take it off. You wake up 4 hours later and start again. Nobody asks how you are. You stop asking yourself. Rank 4, the operator. Dark side, you forgot what normal feels like. You're 26, 3 deployments, Afghanistan, Iraq, 1 location that doesn't appear in any record you'll ever be allowed to read. You are full mission profile qualified, direct action, special reconnaissance, personnel recovery, counterterrorism. You know which tool fits which problem. You have become a tool. You spend 2 days in a drainage ditch that smells like everything wrong with the world. Cold food, minimal movement, breathing rations like a resource. There is one moment, just one, when the sky above you is so clear it feels dishonest. And you think about the man you were at 19, standing on a painted line in Illinois, not reading the last page of his contract. You close your eyes for 90 seconds, then you go back to work. What you don't realize yet, those 90 seconds are the most emotionally present you have been in 4 years, and you will count that as rest. Back home between deployments, your wife asks how you are. You say fine. She asks what you're thinking about. You say nothing. Both of those answers are the most honest lies you have ever told. Rank 5, the lead petty officer. You're 29. You pull Reeves aside after the training breach, behind a vehicle, in the dark. You speak plainly. He listens. The next week, he holds his sector perfectly.
and you feel something you haven't felt in years: connection. The problem is this: the team has become your family in a way that your actual family has stopped being able to compete with. Your wife understands deployments. She does not understand why you are more present in a Nevada desert with men she's never met than you are sitting across from her at your own kitchen table. The Philippines deployment, 6 weeks, building trust across language, culture, military tradition. You come back quieter than you left. Your teammates notice. Nobody mentions it. Your wife notices. She mentions it. You don't have an answer. Because the truth, the real truth, is that somewhere in those 6 weeks you realized that the version of you who exists at home is a performance, and you are exhausted from performing. Rank 6, the chief, dark side, the weight you can't name. You're 33. You've stopped counting deployments. You've started counting the men who are still doing this because of something they learned from you. That is a beautiful thing to count. It is also a thing that keeps you awake. Because for every man who learned from you, there are things you passed on that you didn't mean to. The way you don't talk about hard days. The way you deflect with humor when something is actually wrong. The way you walk back into the team room after a loss and say, "Let's get back to work," before anyone has had a moment to breathe. You modeled strength. You also modeled silence. The mission in northern Mali goes sideways. 8 minutes of communications darkness. You adapt in real time. When the team extracts, the mission is a success. The after-action report credits the planning. You know what actually happened. So does your team. That night, one of your men, a good operator, solid under pressure, sits alone outside the compound for a long time. You see him. You think about going over. You don't. Because in this world, a man who wants to sit alone is given that dignity. What you don't know yet is that sometimes dignity is the wrong gift. Rank 7, the senior chief. Dark side, you know too much to pretend. You're 38. Fewer than 200 active-duty Navy SEALs hold this grade at any given time. You are the institutional memory, the one they call when the textbook has no answer. Castillo comes to you after a brutal training evolution. He's not asking you to fix anything, he's just talking. You listen for a long time. Then you tell him about a night in Kunar Province, 2009, a protein bar in the dark. 2 words. Castillo goes back to work, and you sit with something you have never said out loud. You don't know if what you told him was wisdom, or if you were simply passing on the same silence that was passed to you. The same silence that made you strong. The same silence that made you unreachable. The same silence that has cost you things you will not allow yourself to fully count. You've watched men leave the teams. Injuries, burnout, families they couldn't keep asking to wait. You don't judge any of them. But here is what you never say. You envy some of them. Not for leaving, for having known when it was time. Rank 8, the Master Chief. Dark side, protecting the standard cost you. You're 43. Master Chief Petty Officer, the highest enlisted grade in the United States Navy. You sit in rooms with admirals. You speak plainly. They listen. A proposal comes to modify BUD standards, attrition rates, cost of training, pipeline throughput, a rational argument built on spreadsheets. You spend 3 weeks preparing a counterbrief, not because you're resistant to change, because you know something the spreadsheets don't. A man who has never been broken by something real will eventually be broken by something real at the moment when other men's lives depend on him not breaking. The proposal is tabled. You don't celebrate. But that night, alone, you think about the men the standard has already broken. Not enemy fire, not the bell, the standard itself. Men who passed BUDS and then spent 15 years being broken quietly in ways no selection process was ever designed to catch. Men who held their spacing and lost everything else. You protected the standard. You are still not sure the standard protected them.
Rank 9, the commanding officer. Dark side, 28 years, and what did you keep? You're 47. You are responsible for hundreds of people now, not just SEALs. Analysts, logistics, medical, people who don't get the trident, but without whom the trident means nothing. Fam, 24 years old, brings you an intelligence pattern your senior officers missed, buried in signals data from 3 theater commands. You elevate it with her name attached. The pattern proves accurate. The intelligence informs a successful operation. Someone asks you later why you did it. You don't find the question interesting, but you think about it that night. Because the honest answer, the one you don't say, is that somewhere in year 15 of this career, you met a version of yourself that had stopped asking whether the right people were being seen. You corrected it, but you wonder sometimes what you missed in the years before you did. You've been in uniform for 28 years. Your children are mostly grown. There are milestones that exist only in photographs on a phone you upgraded twice and barely look at. You don't let yourself think about this often. But sometimes, just sometimes, you think about the 19-year-old who signed a contract without reading the last page, and you wonder if he would have signed it if someone had read it to him first. And then you realize he would have, because that is who he was. And that is both the most beautiful and the most heartbreaking thing you have ever understood about yourself. Rank 10, the Rear Admiral. Dark side, the bell you never rang. You're 52. 1 star, Commander Naval Special Warfare Command. You brief the Secretary of Defense. Your phone rings at 3 a.m. with calls you cannot describe to anyone outside the room. And then, on an otherwise remarkable Wednesday, you walk past the brass bell at the entrance to the Buds compound. You haven't thought about it in years. You stop. You think about Torres ringing it at 2:17 in the morning, and for the first time in 30 years, you understand him. Not the way you understood him at 20, when understanding meant contempt. The way you understand him now. A man who looked at everything this life would cost him and decided the price was too high. You think about Decca, about Reeves holding his sector, about Castillo going back to work, about Fam's name in the right report. You think about every man who rang the bell and every man who didn't. And you understand, maybe for the first time clearly, that neither choice was simple, and both choices cost something real. The teams didn't make you hard. They made you honest. They stripped away everything that was performance and left only what was real. You walk back to your office, 14 messages waiting, 3 of them urgent. You start with the first one, because that's what you do. You start, you hold your spacing, you pass the strength forward. And somewhere, in a recruiting office in San Diego, a 19-year-old is signing a contract without reading the last page, and the work continues. If you made it to the end of this, you already know what this video was really about. It wasn't about Navy SEALs. It was about what happens when we teach people that their pain is a weakness and then act surprised when they disappear quietly. If you are struggling or you know someone who is, the Veterans Crisis Line is available 24 hours a day. Call or text 988, then press 1. Ringing that bell is not the end of the story. For some men, it is the beginning of the real one. Subscribe if this meant something to you. We make videos about the things nobody else is willing to say out loud.